To attend grammar school, Tonny and her friends had to go to Amsterdam. This city had been growing into a commercial centre since 1500. On the first map of Amsterdam, painted in 1538 by Cornelis Antonis, we see ships sailing onto the plaza, the central marketplace next to the dam in the River Amstel. A fire destroyed the old town hall. The design for a new one was made by master builder Jacob van Kampen. The famous concentric belts of Amsterdam canals, a design by Hendrik Staats, were laid out in the 17th century. The city population had grown to 200,000 at the time. Amsterdam attracted many artists too. Rembrandt painted the Nachtwacht, or Night Watch, here, and the sculptor Kellinus decorated the new town hall. The city of Amsterdam has remained a centre of cultural life ever since then. On the south side, the Rijksmuseum was built. On Sunday afternoon, Marinus often took his daughter Tonny there to see the doll's house with its many furnished rooms. The Begijnhof was another of his favourite places to visit because of the peaceful atmosphere of its inner garden. Music-loving Alida took her young children to concerts in the Concertgebouw. The south part of the city was designed in 1920 by Berlage, who in 1903 had adapted the design for the newer Amstelbrug. In 1928, he designed what is now called the Berlage Bridge, which Tonny crossed many times on the way to her rowing club. After rowing, she took the longer route home, following the winding river along the Amstel Dijk. In 1949, Marinus was selected for a teaching post at the School for Arts and Crafts in Amsterdam. In those years, the Amsterdam School of Arts and Crafts still occupied this building Berlage had designed in 1908. The school became too crowded for the fast-growing number of students. Here we see Gijs Bakker and Emmy van Leersum, apprentices of Marinus, at work in his class. Marinus, an inspiring teacher, encouraged his students to experiment with new forms and materials, and took them to Paris. Marinus himself made this silver chalice out of one piece in 1954. And he made this bracelet and these earrings for one of his daughters. In 1966, Marinus made this silver bracelet with amethyst for his daughter Tonny. Gerrit Rietveld, as a progressive designer, was commissioned to design the new academy, as he had done in the city of Arnhem. For Amsterdam, he designed a modern, factory-like glass building. Rietveld asked Marinus Swallow to draw his idea for the new workbenches. Tonny was asked by her father to assist at the design. Marinus Swallow had told his children of his adventures in Paris. Tonny visited the great city of art at the age of 15. On this map from 1575, we recognize the medieval street pattern of the city, with Notre Dame in the centre. In 1854, modern market halls, Les Halles, were designed by Victor Baltard and still functioning in 1957 when Tonny arrived at Paris. Then, 100 years later, in 1969, the market activities were moved outside the centre and the steel structures were pulled down in spite of great protests. Fortunately, around 1990, a group of talented French architects were given a new commission. On the former location of the Citroën factory in Paris, a park has been laid out with 2 modern glasshouses functioning as winter gardens. The square between these greenhouses has many fountains, which on a sunny day attract a lot of children to play. In 1960, Tonny was invited on a trip to Burgundy by her cousins, also architecture students. A map of France from 1648 shows the traditional pilgrim routes, which run from Paris and Vézelay all the way to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. Burgundy, once a part of the Roman Empire, was inhabited much earlier. In the church of Vézelay, two kinds of local stone were used, giving its harmonious beauty. In Tonnerre, Tonny and her cousin Peter discovered the Fosse d'Yonne. This natural spring was made into a circular washhouse in 1758. In September of 1960, Tonny started studying architecture in Delft, the city of Johannes Vermeer, one of the greatest 17th-century Dutch painters. It was not easy for Tonny to find a decent place to live during her first study years. She badly missed the cultural ambience of Amsterdam. Delft, here shown in 1932, was a poor city. Factory workers and students were poorly housed, often without sanitary facilities. In the summer holidays of 1962, Tonny's sister Marianne invited her to go to Spain to see the villages of Don Quixote. On their trip through La Mancha, Tonny made pen drawings of the village women carrying their baskets to the market. With better communications and more prosperous living conditions, the villagers are better off now, 40 years later. In La Mancha, Tonny experienced what it was like to live in a house with a patio, an open-air central space with often a tree in the centre. The formerly ruined castles and palaces are now skillfully restored into luxurious posadas, or inns for the visitors. Many of the cities Tonny visited in Spain as a 20-year-old are now UNESCO World Heritage Sites, as is Avila, located at high altitude and dating back to even before the Roman times. A stroll outside the Avila walls, built in the 11th century, is a favorite pastime for its inhabitants. In Salamanca, the girls decided to join the gypsies under the Roman bridge. Over the next days, they enjoyed the city with its rich architecture, particularly the Plaza Mayor, a large pedestrian square which is surrounded by buildings built between 1729 and 1755. During the day, the Plaza Mayor is a social meeting place for its citizens. The square, with only a few benches, functions like a stage. The people are the actors, and the surrounding facades the scenery. The southernmost city in Spain that Ton and Marianne visited in 1963 was Granada. They climbed up to the Alhambra, and they did some etching in the Generalife Gardens. The tall, dark cypresses accentuated the vertical character of the Arabic summer palace. In the summer of 2001, Tonny wanted to show the Alhambra Palace with its many patios to her daughter Paula. Uphill, in Albaicin, the Arabic neighborhood, they discovered a woman's Garden of Eden. Córdoba was a new surprise for Tonny on her last visit in 2001. They entered through the Patio de los Naranjos for a visit to the Mosque of Córdoba with its marble columns, and the architectural novelty of the superposition of the 2 stories of arches to reach a higher altitude. Walking down the avenues, past the ruins of a Roman temple, they arrived at the Plaza Corredora, where flamenco dancers and musicians were preparing their show. In nearby Úbeda, they saw young girls rehearsing the flamenco dance in the patio of a 16th-century building. The plaza and patio as timeless architecture.